What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel, that is Tar Heel Illustrated. I'm THL staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ, we're here for yet another episode of our UNC Football Show. Exciting one here, as it's kind of the first game show we're doing as well. We've done a few of these episodes already, but obviously towards the end of this one, we're going to be previewing Carolina's season-opening matchup with Florida A&M on Saturday. Fun show ahead. Going to be talking depth chart, kicker news, and so much more before we look ahead, like I said, at the end to Carolina's opening game matchup, 8:15 kickoff in Chapel Hill. So, AJ, I want to go back to Monday. Okay, let's go back in time. I know Monday probably seems like a year ago for you now with as much grinding as you've been doing over there. But circle your mind back to Monday, and I want to start there. Obviously, big press conference day for the Tar Heels ahead of the Florida A&M game. Got to talk to Mac, Phil Longo, some players the next day as well. And then we obviously talked to Gene Chizik on Monday too. So we're going to start there. Depth chart was a big topic. Obviously the quarterback news came out then we've already hit on that in a separate podcast. So we won't hit on that too much in this one, but I'm sure we'll talk about it. But when you look at the depth chart, AJ, any surprises, anything that stands out to you the most? What are your thoughts on kind of the depth chart?
Well, I like the new depth chart just because they are very specific with the players' positions and roles. That wasn't the case previously, and that's often not the case. For example, they have the nose tackles listed as nose. They have the three technique guys, which are your traditional defensive tackles, listed as three tech. The power ends, Jack, you've got your Mike linebacker, your Will linebacker, you've got your field safety, your boundary safety, and all that. So
it's whole new terminology.
For people who are well, it's football terminology, and they are the positions. I think we get kind of comfortable saying, well, they're just safeties, they're just linebackers, they're defensive linemen. Mm-hmm. And usually when I write a lot of stuff, I sort of follow that script, because if you put too much out there for people who may not fully understand what some of these things are, what they mean, you could lose them a little bit. You don't want to overweigh your content items. Yeah. So, but I do like that they've done that, and they've spoken more specifically about where guys are the last couple of weeks. I think a reason is because now they have figured out where the strengths are. Mm-hmm. They figured out that, Myles Murphy can do a lot of different things, but he's going to mainly be a three tech guy. They figured out that for all the different stuff that Kevin Hester can do, especially with his length, he's going to be a nose. I mean, he's a 6'4", 305-pound nose tackle. The position has changed some than the way it used to be. So when you used to look at to craft a guy who would be a nose tackle in the 80s or 90s or even early 2000s, they might look a little different than Kevin Hester, but the game has changed. So I like that. I like the specifics of the depth chart. But as far as some guys being on there, I think it's interesting that Will Hardy is the backup to Cam Kelly, the field safety. He made it on the depth chart, but we've talked about him the last couple of weeks of camp because his name kept coming up. And I think you and I did a pod where I mentioned watching him after practice one day. We were waiting for Mac, I think, to come over, or one of the coordinators. We were inside the practice facility, and I was just watching Will Hardy. I was like, man, he looks like he's been here a couple of years. And a couple of teammates talked about his bounce, his athleticism, and he's just got an uncanny knack for doing the right thing out there. And he's a coach's son, so it makes a lot of sense. So that's a little bit interesting. I probably wouldn't have projected that a month ago. I don't think I would have projected Malachi Hamrick not only being on the depth chart as the third jack, which means they plan on using three jacks, but Mac backed it up Wednesday telling us that, we've got a couple packages to use Malachi because he can go after the quarterback. So I like to look where the young guys are. I like to look at some of the newer names to see what's going on. I think running back's interesting when you've got every running back, in the vicinity of Chapel Hill listed on the depth chart. So it's fun. It's exciting. We only got in for the first couple of practices. We were supposed to get in a couple of times to watch full pads, but things happened and we weren't able to. So when you're in our position, where you're trying to, put all these square pegs in square holes. Sometimes they're round holes, and they're hard to stick in there. And we're not 100% sure if a guy is still a square peg or if he's a round one. Mm-hmm. So now we get some clarity on that, and it's an opportunity to chew on it for a few days and then see what the early rotations are like Saturday night. That's the thing that really I get really excited about, because I'm all about information and clarity. So now this is one step closer to really understanding what this team is all about.
Agreed. I think, it's awesome to get that depth chart too, because it was, Max talked about it a ton. There's so many question marks about this team. There's so many young guys that have to step up and play prominent roles, especially on the offensive side of the ball. So to be able to see that, I think is super important. If you guys want to see that, you can head on over to our Twitter. I believe we posted over there. You can head on over to my Twitter as well, Jacob Turner THI. I have it posted over there too. You can check it out over there. And obviously AJ's got an article about it on TarHeelIllustrated.com. AJ, I want to move forward now to Tuesday. We're recording this on Wednesday. Let's move forward to Tuesday. Got to talk to Drake Maye and a couple other players. We'll focus on Drake Maye here. New starting quarterback for Carolina, was named that on Monday. Got to talk to Drake for the first time as a starting quarterback. Safe to say he looked a little bit nervous, sounded a little bit nervous. I think that's extremely expected when you think about the situation he's been put in. He's a guy we haven't really got to talk to a ton anyway. So it's the first, one of his first times in front of the media. What were your thoughts about the press conference? Anything that stood out? Any storylines to take away from that?
He's kind of seen that way a few times before. It's everyone has, throwing out the P word, everyone's got a process with literally everything. Okay.
Yeah.
Seriously. So Drake has actually made some progress from before. He moves a lot at the podium and it looks a little bit uncomfortable, which maybe he is, maybe he isn't. Not everybody wants to stand there in front of a bunch of old dudes answering questions.
Yeah,
especially when you're, more, not even half our ages. For most of us there, we're all, except one guy, he's probably only maybe 15 years older than these kids. The rest of us are like twice their age and more so. So I could understand. And also, it wasn't like Luke was bursting with personality. If you want to draw a comparison there, Luke was kind of, he didn't say a lot of words. He wasn't uncomfortable. He just didn't say a lot of words. Drake, from my understanding, has more personality, a little bit louder, a little more of a rah-rah guy. Luke was sort of a go, but I used to joke that Luke was kind of like Cal Ripken. Cal Ripken would just go about his business. He led by example, and Luke's teammates would say he led by example. Drake's teammates are saying, he's a fanny smacker, he's a yeller, he's a hollerer, he's a guy that is ultra competitive and wants to win everything he gets. We've heard the stories about the salad and who gets their drink, who gets first in line at the drink line, that kind of thing. So those are some Hansbrough type things, by the way. Those are some
ping pong as well. Got to throw the ping pong stories in there too, because that's about as Tyler Hansbrough as it gets.
Yeah, well, and for Drake's, when he was visiting, when he was still in high school, and he was at Mac's house playing ping pong, he's sweating like a pig all over the floor because he's trying to beat everyone's rear end in there at ping pong. So I think that this is just a matter of time. And it's one of the beautiful things about covering kids this age is you see them become something different once they first get thrust into the public limelight in front of the media. A year from now, he won't look uncomfortable up there. No. That's all cool. I don't think fans should worry about that at all. Max said that he had a good practice Tuesday and he had a great practice Wednesday, and it's all about learning to walk around as the guy. Mm-hmm. You're the guy now. It's like being a made man in some ways. He's the dude, and he's stepping into the shoes that were once Sam Howell's shoes. He's a different quarterback. I think the offense is going to run a little bit differently under him. So I think that Drake is going to be fine in time. All the other stuff will take care of itself. He's going to speak on the field, and his teammates have unbelievable confidence in him. We spoke to a bunch of players on Tuesday, and for the people out there that think that there were riffs about who should start inside the coaching room, the coaching staffing room, and some other factors at play, the kids are all saying he was more consistent. And they've been saying that for a while in camp if you talk to them. John Copenhagen was very clear about it about a week and a half ago. Nobody has given any disrespect to Jacoby, but they are all saying, look, Drake makes all the plays, and Drake said, I can do it all. That's a direct quote. He told us Tuesday, I can do it all. And Max said, basically Wednesday, Drake can do it all as well. So it's exciting to see something new and different and to project in our minds what will become of Drake Maye as the quarterback in North Carolina, and then watch it play out and see which direction it goes.
Yeah, and I think, I'll add this to it. I was listening to that press conference, and I think one thing that just really illustrated the respect, not only, but, for the team between the quarterbacks, but between Drake and Jacoby. as individuals was, I believe somebody asked Drake, which is kind of a weird question, like, hey, what did you do better than Jacoby did, in your opinion, to kind of, be the starter? And you could tell Drake was just incredibly kind of uncomfortable answering that question and didn't really want to just be up there kind of bragging and what it kind of looks like about himself. Well, I did this better than Jacoby, and I think that kind of illustrated the respect between the two that each player has. And you expect that in that room. I think it's a healthy room. I think both of those guys are really good quarterbacks. We talked about that ad nauseum. And who knows what happens when the season started. Jacoby may be called on at some point, and I think he'll be ready if he is. So I think that was one thing I took away from that press conference as well. So
it's the culture. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I took away from that the culture, because he could have said, look, I ate my salad faster every time. Yeah, because that was actually a competition. People don't understand. Those two have been competing with about everything. And I jokingly asked, it was J.J. Jones, I think, a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about the salad competition. Mm-hmm. I asked him, I said, so do they even get the same dressing? He's, nah, they both do different dressings.
I love it.
So, okay, so there was the line. There's the fine line. Drake, Jacoby. Maybe one guy does ranch and the other one does Thousand Island or something like that, or French or whatever. And I would think, I don't know who you think does the ranch. I would think Drake's a ranch guy. Jacoby strikes me as a guy that might go French or Russian or something like that, right?
Balsamic,
but they compete with everything. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they compete with everything. And I think when you have a healthy competition with somebody and where you push each other, that respect's going to be there. You have to respect the guy that pushes you. And I think that's the culture in that room, but I think it's a culture that they wanted throughout the program. I asked Mac today about that edge they've been trying to create and then maintain. And that's one of the reasons it took a long time for all these depth chart decisions to be announced and to come out. I think that's why Mac addressed it himself personally Monday in the press conference, where he read out the depth chart. I've never seen a coach do that before. Yeah. If they were to have let us into practice 2 weeks in, we're all going to report this is guys with the first team, that guys with the second team, because that's what they did, what we do. That's what people want. And that's our snippet of intel that we're able to dig up when we're at practice. Maybe one of the reasons they didn't do that because they didn't want any of that out there. Because they've said that, hey, there's no starters right now. There were a few positions that were obvious. Obvious Awesome Richards was a left tackle. Obvious Josh Downs is out there. Obvious Cedric Gray and Noah Taylor had their spots, and Miles Murphy. But a lot of it was unsettled. And in order to settle it, they wanted to get an edge at a certain level across the board up here. And so I asked Mac Wednesday morning, so have you seen that edge that you tried to cultivate and maintain? Have you seen it carry over into game week? Now that there has been a depth chart announced, now that all these conversations have been had with position coaches and the guys in those rooms saying, okay, right now you're the starter, right now you're the second guy, right? Fringe white team guy, right now you're going to be on scout team. They have to have those conversations with everybody. And he said, yes, the edge has carried over. So that's culture. That's what you want. You want that as culture. And if it starts with Drake and Jacoby, it's an easier trickle down than if they don't have it. So them having that is hugely important for this team heading into week one. And as they jump into week two and week zero, I guess it is. It's their week one. I hate week zero. That's
game one, I guess is what we can call it. But
yeah, exactly. But it is a very important thing to have right now that Mac openly admits that last year's group did have. So they say they have it now. We'll see how it plays out over the next few weeks.
We definitely will, AJ. Let's move on to Wednesday now. It's obviously when we're recording this, but I want to talk about some interesting storylines that came out on Wednesday. And I think it starts with the kicker, more specifically the place kicker position. Mac announcing that Noah Burnett is going to start at that position against Florida A&M. He will be kicking the field goals for him. Jonathan Kim still doing kickoffs, heck of a kickoff guy, but Noah Burnett will be kind of place kicker duties for the Tar Heels. I tweeted out on Tuesday that I think the place kicker position more specifically is a position of concern that no one really seems to be talking about. And we've seen in the Mac Brown era over the last few years, special teams losing Carolina games. So we know it is something that's affected this program under Mac before. And now you're throwing a guy in. So true freshman last year, didn't play. He's kind of your guy that's going to be taking all your kicks, all your field goals, all your extra points. And Jonathan Kim's still doing kickoffs. So I think it's a little bit of a concern for this team. There's no doubt about it. You're throwing a new face out there. You don't know, he might look fantastic in practice, but kicking a field goal in a game is a heck of a lot different than kicking a field goal in practice. So what are your thoughts on how that position group battle has kind of played out? And AJ, is it a concern for you as well?
Well, the only time I really paid attention to him doing anything since he arrived was at maybe the second practice I got to watch. I watched Noah Burnett and Jonathan Kim a little bit. And if I recall, they both made every kick. But, Jonathan Kim had been around long enough that if he was going to own that job, he would have grabbed that job a couple of weeks ago and didn't. So I know that they list him first on the depth chart, but that decision was actually made today or yesterday or today. Mac announced it. We're recording this Wednesday, announced it today. So yeah, I think it could be an issue, but he's also a football player. And I tend to think that historically, when I've seen kickers who are also football players, when I say that, meaning like Nick Weiler, for example, everybody remembers him. He had the kick in Tallahassee, right? Well, he was a linebacker in high school at Lake Braddock High School, which, by the way, is Hubert's high school in Maye. He was a linebacker in high school, so he was kind of jazzed up when he got on the field. The nerves weren't really there. He was kind of pumped up like a football player gets pumped up. You've seen Noah Burnett play in high school, and he was a football player as well. So maybe a lot of this won't be faced. He still has to make the kicks, and I agree with you about that because Brandon and I did a podcast about the special teams, and this program has had an issue in the last few years with punts being blocked and being devastating. Everybody remembers Tallahassee. Everybody remembers Raleigh. And then some missed field goals. We all remember Blacksburg. Those are 3 games right there where getting punts blocked or missing field goals cost them games.
Yeah.
And that's 3 wins. And that could have been really changed the trajectory of a lot of those seasons and how we kind of view the first 3 years, or how a lot of people view the first 3 years of the Mac Brown Part 2 tenure. So, yeah, I think that it is a question mark until we see Noah Burnett perform. And I think so much of this team is a question mark. And Mac says, look, we got a lot of question marks. Generally speaking, Jacob, it's not that they have 2 mediocre players in a spot they're trying to choose from. Generally speaking, it's they have really talented kids. And sometimes it's a younger one versus an older one, right? So I think that question marks about who might play and how they might perform, but the optimism for Carolina fans should be pretty strong that in November, those positions where there's some uncertainty will be pretty solid because there's a lot of talent there. Kicker, I'm not sure is one of them because we just don't know. I know Noah Burnett was highly rated, but a lot of kickers are highly rated. Then they get to college and it's a different animal. So we'll have to wait and see. And it probably won't show itself this weekend. It may show itself in Boone, where there's going to be 40,000 people there. And I think the mayor or somebody said it's the biggest thing that's ever going to happen there. So, or has ever happened there. So that will be a good test for them. But we'll find out. If they have place kicking issues, it's going to be hard for them to reach their goals. That's for sure.
Agreed. Anything else that stood out? Let me real quickly before I do that. Let me tell my Noah Burnett story. I almost forgot about it. So I was at a so he went to Leesville Road, played wide receiver for Leesville Road. And I was at a game. They played Wake Forest, which is my hometown. I went to Wake Forest High School. Probably 2019, 2020. I believe it was. I think he was before he committed to Carolina. I know he was getting looked at, but they played Wake Forest, and Noah Burnett caught a pass kind of over the middle. And he's 1v1 with the safety, and he just absolutely trucks the safety. I mean, runs over the kid, runs 50 yards for a touchdown. And it wasn't like the safety. This is Wake Forest, one of the best programs in the state. It wasn't like the safety was, twice as small as he was. They were about the same size. I think the safety was bigger than he was, and just ran over the kid. And I was sitting on the Wake Forest side, and that Wake Forest safety, I mean, it took him 10 minutes to recover. He went in the tent. He was trying to catch his breath for 5 minutes after. I don't know if he was spitting up blood or what, but Noah Burnett absolutely trucked this kid, and I will never forget that play. And then, a few more weeks later, months later, ends up committing to Carolina as a kicker. And I'm like, a kicker? What the heck? This kid was a really impressive wide receiver to watch. So just to ditto what you said, AJ, the guy is a football player, and I'll never forget that highlight because that safety might still be recovering from that hit on Noah Burnett.
I'm a big fan of football players at kicker. Big fan of football players at kicker, and a big fan of quarterbacks who are good in other sports. And by the way, Drake Maye was good in other sports.
Yeah, he was. Heck of a
really good basketball player.
Yeah, runs in the family, I guess. I know who knows where he got that skill
from.
Sure
does.
AJ, real quickly, I know, I don't know if this came out on Wednesday, or if this was mentioned on Monday. I believe it was Wednesday. I know there was some packages mentioned for Malachi Hamrick, freshman at the jack position. Is that a surprise to you? I know he's been kind of lauded a lot in fall camp. Seems like a guy that the coaching staff are pretty happy with.
What it tells me is that the staff's going to use all the tools in its shed.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to use everything it has. And Malachi can get after. Dina will, yield to Miss King.
Yeah,
and she told me a year ago, he can get the quarterbacks in college now. Now, a lot of other stuff maybe he can't quite do. But Max said he's been giving their tackles fits. Mm-hmm. So use them. If he can get to we're going to see this defense try to stay fresh. Now, I was a little surprised when Max said they probably don't go 22 deep on defense yet. And Gene said 16 to 18 blue guys. Blue is first team caliber of players that they trust in all scenarios, right? White teamer guys that they can put out there, but maybe you don't trust them in scenario. Maybe, between the 35s or between the 30s, they trust them a little bit more than when the ball gets inside the 30 on the other end, right? So I was a little surprised it's only 22, but I do think maybe that's where they are here in late August and late October. That number should be higher, but I don't know if Malachi is one of those 22. He's a package player, so maybe he isn't yet, but they're using guys who are not in that blue zone, if you will, to find ways to have them help the team win games. So, for example, Ra Dilworth may have been one of those guys 2 weeks ago, but now he's a blue guy. Mm-hmm. Even though he's not going to start, he's still considered a blue guy. They think he can handle all scenarios. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm talking about. A guy like Malachi, maybe in late October, can handle all scenarios. Sebastian Cheeks is someone to keep an eye on. The reps he gets and when he gets the reps and who's on the field with him when he gets those reps, that's going to go a long way toward, finding out how much he's come along as far as being one of those blue guys, someone that's trusted with a lot of stuff. Travis Shaw is going to be the same way. And Travis doesn't have to get a lot of reps because there's a bunch of dudes up there, but it's a way to monitor him. But not even some of the guys that have been there, like KBJ is coming off the injuries. What groupings is he with out there? How much is he trusted in a lot of this stuff? That's going to be really, really interesting to watch play out. And we'll get a small dose of it Saturday night, but let's be honest. I know that FAMU has a lot of dudes that have played FBS and Power 5 ball, but Carolina should have no problem handling this game. So the game, if it gets out of hand kind of early, we're probably going to learn less about who's trusted in what situations. We're going to learn a lot more about that in Boone, and we'll obviously know everything we need to know when the Irish come to town, September 24th. So I love stuff like that. To me, that's when you peel away the layers and you really want to know where each guy on scholarship sits with respect to a depth chart or just in their process, in their own individual process. That's the kind of stuff that gets me really fired up about covering a football team.
Agreed. I couldn't agree more. AJ, before we move on to the, FAMU preview of this podcast, I want to go ahead and give a shout out to our sponsor on this one. You guys know the name if you listen to us pretty often, myperfectfranchise.net. Guys, if you're a displaced corporate executive wanting to put your career in your own hands, the job market's crazy right now, inflation, all that jazz. You're looking to just kind of, like I said, take your career path and take it and put it in your own hands. You can do that with myperfectfranchise.net. And that's Andy Ludick. He's a founder and owner of this. He's a longtime Rivals member, diehard college football fan, and most importantly, a franchise veteran, having owned multiple franchises and businesses throughout his career. So using his expertise, he helps others find their American dream through a free and very, very thorough consultation process. So call Andy, put your life and career in your own hands, 100% free. So what do you really have to lose? Again, guys, I know many of us have probably driven around, see these franchises popping up everywhere and be like, how do I get involved in that? How do I open one of those? Andy can help you do that and help you set on your own new career path. Again, myperfectfranchise.net. Click the link below. He's a huge Mac Brown fan too. So if you do end up talking to him, make sure you let him know THI sent you, and make sure you mention Mac Brown too, because I'm sure he'll love to talk about him as well. Again, links in the description below. Head on over to myperfectfranchise.net and get started on your new career path today. Okay, AJ, let's talk about FAMU a little bit. Florida A&M, again, 8:15 p.m. kickoff, season opener, week 0 is what they've been calling it, in Chapel Hill. I'm going to run through just a few notes. We're not going to focus too much on FAMU. We're going to talk a little bit about them last year. We're more focused on what Carolina needs to do to win its first game of the year. There's not a sample size to look at for FAMU in terms of this year's team, but looking back, an impressive team, an impressive program over the last few years. Finished 9-3 last year, 7-1 in the SWAC in 2021. Picked to finish second in the SWAC East this season behind Jackson State, who's obviously coached by Deion Sanders. Got just a spectacular program brewing down there. Looking at some of the individual guys to watch out for, linebacker Isaiah Land was named the preseason defensive player of the year in the SWAC. Big time player for them. 6 players named on the preseason SWAC first and second teams. And another one to throw at you, 25 portal transfers this season on the team. 25. Just a big group of guys they brought in from D1 programs especially. So I think that's something to watch out for. A lot of new faces kind of coming on in there. So AJ, like I said, we're not going to focus too much on FAMU because we just don't have that sample size from this year to know what this team's going to be like. And this is a game, make no mistakes about it, that Carolina should be winning. So when you look at this team, when you look at this program, when you look at some of the talent they're bringing in, why is this a tricky game? And why can this be a tricky game for North Carolina?
9 of those transfers, and this is according to Mac earlier this morning, 9 of those transfers are on the depth chart, and there are a lot of Power 5 guys. Running back from Pitt, a couple guys from FSU, so some dudes that have been in Kenan Stadium, played there. It's a tricky game because they're not a bad FCS. Like Wofford has had a pretty good program over time, or at least snippets anyway. But they were struggling last year when they ventured to Kenan Stadium. Mm-hmm. Played Western Carolina a couple of times. Western Carolina hadn't been good in ages, right? But FAMU's got a winning culture. You know, when kids go there, 25 transfers and 9 are on the depth chart, and a lot of them, they transfer down from bigger programs, and they're not on the depth chart. That tells me that there were some pretty good holdovers in the program. Kids that had success last year winning 10 games, kids that cemented their roles and fought off some newcomers to keep their roles. I think that means they got a good culture. That means that they're probably got a lot of coaching there. Kids trust the process. They trust the system. So, and they're gonna be athletic. They're gonna play a lot of dudes. We've seen much worse FCS teams go into more proven Power 5 schools and win games. So if Florida A&M were to beat North Carolina, there are a lot of people in the football world that wouldn't be completely stunned because there have been much bigger upsets. However, given what Carolina is coming off of from last year, so much of the talk about accountability, about culture, about standard, about maintaining an edge, about doing things the right way. And when we're given examples by players, they say, how a guy arrives at the meeting, how they comport themselves in the line when they get food, how they do everything, how they keep their area around their locker. A lot of little intangible things that in most respects don't really have anything to do with whether or not they're tackling properly. But then you throw in the football side of things, the Gene Chizik defense, the optimism among Carolina fans that look what he did in 2015 after that horrific 2014 defense that was worse than last year's by far. Had a lot more issues and had a lot less talent when he came in to take over that unit in 2015. All that stuff and all the 4 stars all over the roster and 3 5-stars. They have 32 kids on the roster that were 4 and 5 stars. They didn't have that in 2015. So with all that being said, it would be an enormous disappointment if they end up being upset in this game. And because of those things, I don't think that they will. I do buy into a lot of the message that the program has been sending. I've been around long enough that I can scent it a lot of times. Now, I didn't scent it a whole lot last year, but we weren't getting the same access last year because we were still in the COVID period. So, and maybe I wouldn't have scented it because I don't scent everything, right? I'm throwing that word around a lot. Mm-hmm. I have the belief that what we're hearing from the program is real. What we're hearing from these kids is real. They still got to go out and play. But I also think this is going to be a different football team November 1st than it is August 7th mm-hmm. when they open up against FAMU. I think that they'll be good enough and explosive enough and dynamic enough to pop on some big plays, have some sustained periods of success on the field, and win a game where there's also a lot to clean up. And I think that that's fine. You want to get that out there because the beautiful thing about starting in week 0 is they get a chance to see a lot of the crap that needs to be cleaned up before they go to Boone, because that stuff will be fully exposed to Boone. So they're benefiting by getting a game before they go into that hornet's nest. So I think that they'll win. I think they'll win fairly comfortably. There'll be some eye-popping moments. There'll be some, what the hell moments out there as well for the Tar Heels. But that's part of the fun of this because they're young. They're going to put a lot of young guys in the field, and they're going to come out of this thing better than when they go into it.
Agreed. I'll say 2 things I'm looking for, watching the most. It's pretty obvious ones, but for me, how does Drake Maye play in his first start? I know that's something that every Carolina fan's going to be looking at, but, I'm the same way. I want to see how he performs under the lights as a starting quarterback for the University of North Carolina. Defensively also, so many expectations around this defense. I think Jahvaree Ritzie came out with a quote either yesterday or today talking that, he expects this defense to be one of the best in the country, if not the best in the country. And I was like, that's a very, very bold statement. I think we hear that just about every preseason. So you don't really take too much credence in that, but I want to see how improved this defense is. And more than that, I just want to see a defense enjoy themselves and play with a lot of energy out there. We didn't see that last year for a majority of it for a number of different reasons, which I'm not going to rehash on this podcast, but that's what I'm looking for. Do we see a defense out there that's disciplined, that flies around the field, that congratulates each other and gets excited when other guys on the team make plays? Or are we going to see a lackadaisical defense that gives up big plays, doesn't play very hard? I don't think we're going to see last year's defense. I'm really looking forward to seeing how this defense under Gene Chizik performs. But most importantly, I want to see a defense that flies around the field and just looks like they're having a heck of a lot of fun out there, which I'm expecting to see on Saturday night. So anything you're looking forward to seeing?
Yeah, number one there to what you're talking about. Number one is pre-snap organization.
Yeah, huge.
Because that was the first. If you have a checklist of what was wrong last year, that would have to be at the top, because when that's an issue, everything else doesn't matter, as we saw. Okay. So pre-snap organization is number one. Number two, Gene is continually talking about searching for inches. I ran a piece the other day about searching for inches. Those inches, as we've talked about on at least 1 or 2 podcasts, hitting a guy when you make contact and the defender meets the ball carrier, if he's a little bit more in front of him, he's got that face mask that knows a little bit in the front of him, he's got a better chance of bringing him down than if he's hitting him from the side or from behind, right? So searching for inches means when you find those inches, you're making better contact. So you have a much better chance of bringing a guy down or slowing them up enough so teammates come over and they help bring them down as well. That's number 2. The number 3 thing that I want to see from this group out there is the tackling.
Yeah.
So if you want to judge a team on being significantly better than a year ago in some basic areas, number 1 is pre-snap organization. Number 2 is searching for those inches, and that comes from pre-snap organization much of the time. And the third thing is wrapping a guy up and bring him to the ground. And again, if you hit someone with your nose head on when they're coming at you or somewhat at you, it's a lot easier to bring them down than when you're hitting them from the side.
Yeah.
And so those are the things I think Carolina fans need to look for. They're going to fly around. They're going to be athletic. They're going to bounce. They're going to look pretty at times. They're going to have a lot of energy. They're going to smack each other in the helmet when they make big plays. But how consistent are they with those things? Because that will tell you if the defense is improved or not. They should make plays against Florida A&M. They should be fired up and cause some turnovers and get some big hits and all that kind of stuff. But are they consistently organized in the pre-snap and everything that goes from there? Do they tackle well? Do they hit guys and allow teammates to come in and there's 3 or 4 dudes bringing a guy down? When they get to the quarterback, is it just one guy applying pressure? Are there multiple guys coming from different spots? And they do it conventionally without having to throw a bunch of stuff in there to try to get some pressure on the quarterback. Those are the things I'm going to look at. And those will be the indicators to me, how improved the defense is in our first snapshot appearance of seeing what they're all about.
Agreed, AJ. It's that time of the podcast again. It's prediction time. I've submitted my staff picks already, AJ, not to brag or anything.
I saw that. You're the first one in.
I'm not to brag or anything like that. I had to let the people know that I did send mine in on Wednesday, which I'm sure is pretty unheard of from our staff. And trust me, I sent it on Friday night.
You're way ahead. I got a 5 spot that says Kevin Roy doesn't send his in at all.
I'm not gonna. That's a heck of a bet right there. You're probably gonna win that $5 there. Shout out Kevin Roy, our video guy. AJ, I said 45-17. I think FAMU is going to score some points. I think it might be late when Carolina's kind of comfortably ahead. Maybe see some of those second white team guys, as we're calling it, come in late in the game. 45-17 scoreline for me. Pretty comfortable win for Carolina. I think we see some nice things out of the offense. And I think we see a few turnovers in there forced by the defense too, which is a little bit of a refreshing thing for Carolina fans to see, I'm sure. So, AJ, I don't think you've done yours yet. So this is off the top. What do you think?
I haven't. Yeah, I haven't.
Put any thought in it, bro?
I sent out the email this morning, and that's the first time I've even thought about it in any way, shape, or form. But I didn't think about results.
I'm glad. However, I wanted to put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, yeah, this is a tough one, though. Gee, who am I going to pick? Let me flip something here. Who was it? Jeremy flipped a phone one time when we were trying to decide whether we were going to do interviews the next day in person at the football center or at practice facility or on Zoom. And he flipped his phone.
You don't see that very often.
My phone. I think you're about right. Since I can't pick the same score as you right now, I'm going to say 48-17. I have no idea what I'm going to do when I actually write it up here tonight or tomorrow. But I think 48-17 range, a late touchdown by FAMU against a bunch of the really, really young guys getting needed snaps. That makes sense. I think at halftime, we did a Twitter space the other day, and I said I thought that they would have 38 points and 300 yards at halftime. And that's, to me, more the barometer of where they are, because once you build a big lead, you get a lot of dudes in the second half. I don't judge a team as much by that. I judge them in games like this by what they do by halftime, because they go, score doesn't matter to the coaches in the first half. It could be 65-0, and they're pushing the pedal because it's the first half. You must play to the half in games like this and be who you are. Then you could step back and say, okay, we got to get these guys in. We got to look at this. We got to look at that. So I say 38-7 at halftime, 300 yards of offense. That's the other part of my projection here as well.
I love it, AJ. I love it. We had to get the prediction at the end. I probably were going to regret doing this throughout the season because I don't know if we got a single. I probably got like one or two right last year with how last season went. So hopefully our predictions will go a little bit better this year. But I'm feeling pretty confident in this one. I think you should be too. So let's go ahead and wrap this one up. UNC Football Show, the Florida A&M week 1 or game 1, I'm calling it, because it's not week 1 according to Mac Brown and the UNC football program. It's week 0, game 1.
College football. You Google week 0, and a lot of the garbage games that are this week. And I say garbage because there's some Duquesne at Florida State. That should be free admission.
Yeah,
but
even though Duquesne had a football program,
they're calling it week 0, which doesn't make any sense because it's not week 0 for the teams that are playing. It's week 1.
Yeah,
it's week 1 for us with laptops that go around.
That's why I put game 1 on our thumbnails, because I was gonna put week 1, then I was gonna put week 0, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna put game 1 because it is for sure Carolina's first game of the season. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in.
This is game 1.
Yeah, game one is definitely is. So, guys, we appreciate you tuning in. You can head over to TarHeelIllustrated.com. When do you post the stat picks, AJ? Is it Thursday you're going to throw the stat picks, or is it Friday?
No, stat picks, because it's an 8:00 game, we'll do it on Friday. If it's a noon game, like the week later, I'll probably put up Thursday evening.
Okay, cool. So, guys, if you are a premium
depends
subscriber,
on what time the Saturday game is.
Yeah, I figured that's how you worked it out. If you are a premium subscriber to TarHeelIllustrated.com, which you can sign up for just $8.33 a month. Link is in the description below. Head on over to our premium board. Head on over to our football board, our premium board over there, and put your predictions in once the staff picks come out on Friday. Get involved over there and let us know what you think the score is going to be for Carolina's season opener. I'm sure Carolina fans are really excited about it. Go ahead, AJ.
Yeah, real fast. I should have told you this. This is terrible planning on AJ's part, but we're also going to do another Twitter space Monday night.
Yep.
We've done a couple of them. They've been very successful. We have a little free promo that we throw in there just for people on the Twitter space. And it's been very, very popular. So Rob was like, hey, let's do another one. I said, okay, we'll do another one. So join us 8:00 Monday night at Heel Illustrated. That's our Twitter handle, at Heel, not Heels, at Heel Illustrated. We're going to do a Twitter space for Monday night. I keep saying Friday. Monday night at 8:00, and we're going to have a little free promo giveaway to our site in there as well. So go in there and take advantage of it.
Yeah, come get involved. We'll have some, we like to answer some questions and hear from you guys as well. So come get involved over there. Again, at Heel Illustrated on Twitter. You can actually find that in our description as well. I believe I have that link down there. Monday night, 8 to 9 p.m. We'll go a few minutes after, like we always do. Let's do this to wrap this one up. If you're excited about Saturday night and you think Carolina's going to win, or if you're going to be in Kenan Stadium on Saturday night, go ahead and give this video a like below. Make sure you share it with your friends too. hit that subscribe button as well and that notification bell so you know every single time we upload. And if you thought we already uploaded a lot, we're going to be uploading a heck of a lot more once the season starts. So guys, make sure you keep it locked to TarHillIllustrated.com and our YouTube channel, Tar Heel Illustrated. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones. We appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks.